BAIST Class 3470, Application and Server Support, Digest 1, Core Network Services, due February 7th, 2018. Prepared by Ryan Matthews, Colton Rumbolt, and Stefan Susi. Prepared for Thomas Rayner. The purpose of this digest assignment will be for our group to implement and examine different server applications that we can expect to see in small, medium, or enterprise network environments. We will be breaking up our video into multiple sections and covering certain aspects of how each one of them functions. In the first section of this video, we will be discussing which virtualization software we chose for our server to host the contents of our virtual environment. We have chosen to use VMware's ESXi hypervisor software for our network. It is a technology that we have used frequently in the past, and it is one seen in many enterprise-level environments. VMware ESXi is a Type 1 bare metal hypervisor, meaning that the hypervisor software runs directly off of the server's physical hardware rather than running off of an underlying operating system. Here we have the web GUI interface for ESXi, which we have accessed by typing in the server's IP address into a web browser. It is relatively simple to navigate to and provides you with a wide range of features to manage the VMs hosted on your server. You can control settings such as VM resources, network connections, events, generated logs, and many other features all through the simple to follow web interface. Here we have a demo of how two of our VMs are operating on the ESXi server. Our domain controllers are hosted virtually on the hypervisor, and after configuring the network adapter information on the ESXi web interface, we can now see that DC1 is able to ping the other server by its IP address of 192.168.20.10. Next, we have an example of how a VM is created on the ESXi server, where all that is needed is to configure some basic information about the machine you are about to create in an ISO image that contains the VM's operating system. Once all the information has been filled out, the VM will then be created and can proceed to function on the server. If we had more than one ESXi server, we could actually move VMs across the server through the use of the vSphere management tool. Unfortunately, we do not have this tool available, so instead what we will be doing is showing off screenshots of how the entire migration process works. First off, within vSphere, you must right-click the VM being hosted on the appropriate server and select the option that says Migrate. Next, a window will pop up that will ask what kind of migration you'd like to perform with that VM. You could simply have the VM function off of another server's resources while the data store remains on the old server, move the data store itself, or just move the entire VM and its data contents. Moving the entire VM would be useful for when an old ESXi server is about to be decommissioned. That way, the assets on the machine can run off of a different server that is potentially more powerful. After selecting the contents to move over, you must choose which other ESXi servers should host the contents you are hoping to migrate. Then, all there is left to do is simply wait for the process to finish. Before we end our section on virtualization, we thought it would be best to show off a cool or useful feature within ESXi which we believe to be its detailed monitoring window. This area of the web management interface allows someone to see how efficiently the resources on the server are running and can be used to troubleshoot any potential issues affecting a VM, such as a high CPU usage, memory, or disk problems. In the second section of this video, we will explore the various Windows Active Directory services that we had used and how we configured them to operate within our virtual network. By examining the DNS manager on our primary DC, we can see the various records that were created for the devices on our network. All of our workstations and servers have their own A records, which maps their domain name to an IP address, as well as name server entries for our domain controllers, and lastly, a start of authority entry for our primary DC, which we have called DC1. We can also see multiple pointer records in the reverse lookup zone for our servers and workstations so that they may resolve IP addresses to domain names if necessary. Next, we wanted to set up redundant DHCP scopes across our two domain controllers, so in the event that one of them goes down, the other one is still capable of handing out IP addresses to the devices on the network. If we look at the failover properties, we can see that DC1 has the other DC as its partner server and that it is functioning as the active DHCP server. If we examine the settings on our other DC, we can see that it has DC1 listed as its partner server and that it will be functioning as a standby DHCP server in our network. We will now examine what happens when a client on our network tries to obtain an IP address from our DHCP server. The first step is that our client with no IP address assigned to it will have a value of 0000, where it will then send a broadcast message out to the entire network looking for a DHCP server to respond. This is known as a DHCP discover. Next, the available DHCP server with an IP address of 192.168.20.5 responds to the DHCP discover it received with a DHCP offer, where it will then tell the client the address it is willing to lease. In this case, the address is 192.168.20.50, the first address in our DHCP scope. Once the client has received the DHCP offer from the DHCP server, it will respond back with what's called a DHCP request, where it then tells the DHCP server that it would like to lease the address that it just received previously in the DHCP request. The final step in this conversation for an address is for the DHCP server to respond back with a DHCP acknowledgement message, which will contain the IP address that is to be assigned to the client. Once this has finished, the client will now have an IP address that it can use on the network for communication. The last thing we would like to demonstrate in this section is that we were able to set up a distributed file system across our DCs called the DFS share, where files saved to the share from one DC are automatically made to the other for redundancy purposes. In our third section of the video, we would like to go over the functionality of some of the services on our MySQL database server. One problem we ran into with MySQL is that we cannot manually select individual databases to bring on and offline, as this was not a feature within MySQL. As an alternative, if we need to bring the database offline to run a backup, we would instead need to shut down the entire MySQL service, then turn it back on once we were all finished. If we needed to run a backup of our database server, this could all simply be done through the command line. First, we need to add the MySQL application to the path, then simply run the command that was on screen and specify the directory and where we want the backup file to be stored, saving it as a .sql file. Lastly, we would like to demonstrate how to compress a MySQL database if needed. After running the MySQL check command with optimized flag set, it will allow us to specify a database that we would like to compress. In this case, because we had no data to compress, it instead ran an integrity check to make sure that everything is working fine. We can run our own integrity check on its own by entering the same command we used to compress the database, but to instead replace the compress flag with the analyze flag. The last section of our video will cover the project management software that we plan to use to better coordinate a team when they are working on a project together. Rather than download a separate piece of software onto our server for our project management, we instead decided to go with a cloud-based platform called Bittrex. Due to it being hosted in a cloud environment, we can access the Bittrex project management platform from anywhere and not have to worry about encountering issues if one of our local servers hosting the project management software were to crash. To access the Bittrex project management platform, all you need to do is set up your email within the Bittrex dashboard, and then all you need to do is visit their website and sign in to get access to the main portal. Once signed in, you can see all the various different options that are available for project management to give to you and your team. To start a new project is really easy. All you need to do is select tasks and then start a new project. From there, you'll have options on how you want to set up the group, either if you want to share it with everybody or keep it within a certain amount of users. From there, you just got to give it a name and pick which users you want to have access to the project so you can keep track of their work. Now that a project has been created, we can start creating a Gantt chart using the built-in tool on the right side of the screen. We created 2 test Gantt entries, and we were able to adjust them by pulling on the start and end times in the web GUI, as well as accessing additional options that we can use to make more configurations to the projects we created as we need. The last thing we will cover in our project management setup is the use of reporting tools within Bittrex. The catch to using these reports is that it is part of the Bittrex Premium service, which is not unlocked by default when you first create an account and is an additional paid service. The reporting tools does give us the ability to track the time spent working for some employees, check for any absences, as well as read reports submitted about individual users. This would be great to ensure that everyone in the group is pulling their weight. In all, Bittrex is a fast and cheap way to quickly get an always available project management server up and running. The only downside with Bittrex is that most of its features seem to be locked behind a paid premium service, or it is missing some of the functionalities that other project management softwares have, like the incorporation of WBS tools. Our group hopes it was able to teach you a thing or two about the various server applications available for use. Thank you for taking the time to watch our video. If you have any questions about any of the topics covered in this video, please feel free to ask anyone in our group and we'll be happy to answer your questions.